Hello everyone, welcome to another Friday Closeout. I'm actually releasing this on Thursday again this week because we've got a short week and I want to keep to the trend of releasing this on the last day of the work week. Now, I've spent a couple of videos over the past few weeks and we've talked a little bit about spiritual disciplines. And so I wanted to kind of pick that back up again and talk to you about something else that you can incorporate into your practice of your faith that will help you deepen your faith. Because if we're all honest, at certain times in our lives, we go through places where we are in a rut spiritually, where it feels like no matter what we do, no matter what we try, we're just not growing the way that we want. We're not praying the way that we want. We're not reading scripture the way that we want. It just feels like we've kind of stagnated. And one of the purposes of spiritual disciplines is to help us when we get into those ruts so that we don't just throw up our hands and give up. Because a discipline is something that helps you navigate those challenging times. Now, when you hear the word discipline, you don't think of something that's easy. Discipline implies something that is challenging and takes some dedication. And a spiritual discipline is something that can carry you through both the good times and the challenging times. And so today I want to talk to you about the spiritual discipline of study. Now, study, when you hear that word, what might come to mind is school. You get ready for taking a test and, you get the assignment and you sit down and you try and, memorize these facts or understand these concepts so that you can reproduce them on a test. And so this idea of study often carries with it some negative connotations because of how we think of it when it's related to school. But I want to maybe shift the way we think of it towards a positive orientation, especially when it comes to spiritual discipline. Now, a book that I've been using some to help kind of guide this discussion over the past few weeks has been The Celebration of Discipline. And I want to share with you 4 steps in this book related to study. And these are things that you can put into practice in your own life, in your reading of scripture or your reading of books for devotional purposes. These are things you can start doing right now. And they might sound kind of basic and familiar, because the bottom line is a lot of the same things that you would use to study for a test or to study for something in school are the same sorts of skills that you can use in a spiritual discipline as well. So the first step in study is repetition. Now, when I hear that, I kind of cringe a little. The thought of just reading something or repeating something over and over is not all that appealing to me. It's like, oh, that's so boring. Why would I want to do that? But here's what happens when you start to repeat something and you start to fill your mind with it and you start to listen to it or read it over and over, is it starts to get ingrained into your thinking. As you're going throughout the day, because you've been thinking about and repeating those verses or repeating a passage from a book that you read over and over, things will happen and those things will just come to mind because you've been marinating your mind in those words. So the first one is repetition, and that can go a long way because we soak our minds with a lot of things throughout the day. Social media, YouTube videos, whatever it is. But how often are we making a conscious decision to soak our mind in the things of God? That's what repetition helps us do. Now, the second thing is concentration. This is a tough one. And I recently started trying to do some memorization of scripture, and concentration is a hard one. Because almost without fail, every moment of the day, there is something vying for my attention, even in those times that I try to carve out just to focus on scripture memorization. There's an email that pops up on my work computer. There's a notification that pops up on my phone. I get a phone call. It seems like there's always something vying for my attention. But if you want to really study and incorporate this discipline, you have to devote time and mental energy to be able to concentrate on the task at hand. The third thing that we want to look at is comprehension. Now, so you've done your repetition, you've done your concentration, you've focused in on what you're trying to learn, and now, all of a sudden, you begin to make connections. You begin to see things in the text or in the book that you're working on and reading and trying to memorize and incorporate into your life, things that maybe you never saw before. I've been working on the Sermon on the Mount, trying to memorize that. It's a big task. We'll see if I'm successful in it. But since I read it aloud a few times, and I have been listening to it over and over, and I have read it through a number of times, all of a sudden I see these connections through the text that I didn't see there before. I'm able to make connections between one piece and another piece. I'm able to see how it all fits together in ways that I never could, because before in the Sermon on the Mount I might just pick a chunk here or a few verses there that fit whatever I was trying to say at the moment. But when you look at it as a whole, man, it shines a light on it that you never see before. And then finally, the fourth step is reflection. So comprehension, that's kind of the understanding, but reflection is when you begin to see the larger significance of the text. So you go from understanding it, like, oh, I get it now, to, oh, I see how this comes into play in my daily life in a way that I never did before. And so that's what reflection is, where you begin to see how this text actually changes your life, how it applies to what you're going through on a day-to-day basis, how it challenges the way that you think. And all this happens through making a conscious choice to engage in the spiritual discipline of study. So one more time, those 4 steps are repetition, concentration, comprehension, and reflection. So my challenge for you as you go into this long weekend is to find a passage of Scripture. I'm talking more than just a verse or two, but maybe a chapter or two. Read it through, study it, try and reflect on it. Let it soak into your mind and into your life and begin to inform and change the way you are living and making decisions. And then you'll begin to understand and see the value of the spiritual discipline of study. Thank you for watching today. I'm going to be taking a couple weeks off in September here to spend some time with my family and take a break and kind of try and reset a little bit as I move into a busy fall season. So you probably won't see any videos from me for a few weeks, but don't worry, I'll be back soon with more weekly videos and Friday closeouts. I appreciate you being here today. Go in peace.